Hi, my dear students. Today we'll talk about a new topic. I know which is not going to be very new because we have already discussed those things even in the previous chapter, that is Cold War. And you are not going to be so much new about this topic. However, I'm hoping that we are going to learn something new even in this new topic which we are going to deal today. So our topic is on chapter 10 of your textbook, entitled as The End of Bipolarity and Disintegration of the Soviet Union. Now, you are not you are now already familiar with the word called bipolarity. So, during the Cold War, there was two power competing with one another. That is the existence of two power. So here in chapter 10, we are going to talk about the end of that two power. Means, bi means two, and polar means we are talking about the existence of two division of power. So, meaning of bipolar means it usually defines the distribution of power or between the two states in regard to their economic power, military power, and their cultural influences also. So that is meant by the meaning word or meaning of bipolar or bipolarity, which means existence of two power. So here we are going to talk about the end of bipolarity, the end of two rule, and existence of unipolarity. And causes of disintegration of the Soviet Union. Disintegration means the word disintegration means breaking up of something into a smaller one, or breaking away, or making something into a smaller one. Disintegration, fall. We can use the word called falling down, or breaking away. All those things in the place of the word disintegration. Now, disintegration of Soviet Union. So here clearly talks about the breaking away of the Soviet Union or the fall of the Soviet Union. Okay, the cause of the disintegration of Soviet Union, it happens on 26 December 1991. Please keep that in mind. 26 December 1991 marked the day for the fall of or the disintegration of the Soviet Union into smaller states. Now, what were the reasons, the causes of the Soviet Union? The first one was the negation of the political democracy. Now, in your previous chapter, you have been taught about the CPSU or the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. Since we have already got the concept, clear idea about the rule or the type of government that was in existence in the Soviet Union, the communist ideology that was prevailing in the Soviet Union all past those years till this Cold War. So we know that this CPSU or the Communist Party of the Soviet Union was in control of this Soviet Union under the leadership of the Stalin for more than 70 years. And because of this, or maybe everything was controlled by the state, because of that the state officials, they started becoming unaccountable or irresponsible towards the people. They only think about their benefits, or they only want to talk about their own welfare, personal welfares, instead of the common welfares or the state welfare or for the people. So they become so unaccountable towards the people. That was one of the reasons. There was no democracy in the political scenario of the country. All the medias like the newspaper, radios, and means of communication were controlled by the state. Now, in short, we can say there was no freedom of speech and expression to the people. Everything was under the control or the direction of the government. Like you cannot write your own article which you want to write, or you cannot broadcast the programs which you want, or where you want to spread the message to the people until it is approved by the government. Sort of those things happening in the Soviet Union. And this, the parliament, even the parliament of the state, it was just like a puppet in the hand of the CPSU. The parliament was just in existence to approve the policies and programs of the CPSU, or the Stalin, under who was the leader of the CPSU. So it just became a mere rubber stamp. I mean, they cannot do anything. They cannot say no. They cannot go against him or the CPSU. All this causes the restlessness in the country, slowly leading to the disintegration or the downfall of the Soviet Union. The second was the economic failure. The government started emphasizing on developing the industries, heavy industries. We will talk much more about that in the next topic, in the next point. However, they started emphasizing on the heavy industries instead of food production. And then everything was controlled by the state officials. Like I've told you, everything was under the hand of the state, so people could not do anything. Okay, the third point is militarism. Now, during the Cold War, they were competing with the power or the strength of the USA or the Western countries, Western power, so much that they want to be strong, or they want to build themselves strong with the military powers. So much of the economy and the resources were spent to maintain this military strength. Like I've told you, emphasize on the heavy industries. Like instead of producing food and basic necessities of the people, they started producing heavy artilleries like tanks or machine guns or many things which can strengthen the military power of their country in order to keep themselves secure from the control of the, or from the attack of the Western power like USA. So all their economy and their resources were spent to maintain the military strength instead of looking after the welfare of the people. So that led to the shortage of the basic necessities. And basic necessities here, we're talking about the shelter, the food, and the clothing. Even those were not provided, or there was a shortage of those things. So definitely, when there is a shortage of basic necessities, then people are going to be unhappy with the government. So definitely it slowly started leading to the disintegration of the Soviet Union. The fourth one is the Gorbachev Policy. Now Gorbachev is a name of a person. He introduced two kind of policies in 1988 when he became the president of the country. Initially, he was the General Secretary of the CPSU, or the Communist Party of Soviet Union, till 1985. And then when he became the president, he introduced two type of policy or ideas that he was trying to restructure. He was trying to bring changes to the Soviet Union system. Now the first one was the glasnost, and then the second one was perestroika. Now glasnost, it means openness or freedom of expression and criticism, and perestroika meaning restructuring. Now restructuring, here we are talking about restructuring of the system, political system or economic system. Restructuring, it involves many things. However, because of this policy, the subordinate or the officials who were corrupted does not like his idea, because they don't want the people, the common people, to involve in their governmental affairs, and they don't want any kind of criticism from the people. So this openness in the freedom of expression and criticism and restructuring, all these aggravated the corrupted officials. It made them angry, and then they want to pull down this Gorbachev from the presidency, and which was successful. So even his policy, because of this Gorbachev policy, he was removed from the presidency of the country, and then that slowly led to the disintegration of the people. Maybe if these two policy was successful, then the Soviet Union could have been revived. But since the subordinate officials was not supporting him, they were rather planning for his downfall. So that gradually leads to the downfall of the Soviet Union. The fall of the communist regime in the East European countries. Now, the democratic or the liberal ideas and the communist ideologies, that was the main reason about the Cold War. Each of them, they were trying to stop one another. The communist ideology, or the Russian, Soviet Union, they were trying to content, or they were trying to stop the spread of democratic ideology in and around the world, and then spread their own ideology. On the other hand, the US or the Western countries, they were trying to spread the ideology of the democracy or the liberal ideology, and then content or stop the spread of the communist ideology in the world. So that was the main reason where there was a conflict between these two countries, the Soviet Union and the USA. That was the main cause of the Cold War. However, after the Cold War, this the communist government, they lost their hold in the East European countries, like in Poland, Hungary, and Romania, because they started withdrawing all their forces, military forces, who were giving support to these countries in East European countries. So that gradually leads to the disintegration of the Soviet Union. Now, there was also another cause in this topic of the fall of communist regime in East European countries. It's talk about the Berlin Wall in 1989, the fall of Berlin Wall in 1989. Now, Berlin Wall was set up in order to make a distinction between the Germans. That was the East German and the West Germans. Now because of this Berlin Wall in the German, it was divided into East and the West German. Now East German was under the control, or like it was being looked after by the communist government, and then the West German was under the control of the liberal or the democratic regime. So when the Berlin Wall falls down in 1989, both the German united, and then they became one. That also added to the cause of the failure of the communist regime in the East European countries. The two German united, becoming as one German. And then the Communist Party, which was holding its power in the East German, failed, and because of that, the failure of the communist regime in the East European country was added for the failure of the disintegration of the Soviet Union. Okay, national aspiration of the Union Republics. Now many new states, because of all this restlessness in the political field, the economic arena, political arena, and all those things, now the small countries which have built up Soviet Union, there were many small countries, they started declaring their own independence. Now they started aspiring to be a free country rather than to be the part of the Soviet Union. So under the Union Republic of the Soviet, or Union Republics of this Soviet country, or the USSR, the small countries like this Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, all these countries, and then there are more countries which started following their suit. They started declaring their own independence, and then they don't want to be no more with the Soviet Union. So more states you can see in your page number 156 in your textbook. So they declared these three republics. They started declaring their independence between 1988 and 1990, followed by many other states, which you can see there in your page number 156 in your textbook. So that was another reason why there was a downfall of the Soviet Union, or why the Soviet Union disintegrated into a lesser power. Now the second one is shock therapy. Now what is this shock therapy? In short, I think you know the word meaning of shock. So it was a sudden, something that happened so suddenly. So here shock therapy is the term to describe the sudden transition of a social, political and economic policies from the socialist into a liberal capitalist system, which resulted in the great chaos and turmoil in Russia. Now they were following okay, so this shock therapy, it was the term which was described the sudden transition of these policies from the socialist into the liberal. Now, like I've told you, the socialist means where everything was controlled by the state, but the liberal means where the individual were given the freedom to do anything in the market or in the economic field. So everything was sudden, all of a sudden. They did not go step by step, but all of a sudden they just totally turned into they try to turn or they shift their system into the liberal capitalist from the socialist. Now because of this, there was so much uproar or so much unrest in the Russia. So this was called the shock therapy. Now what was the effect and the consequences of this shock therapy? Let's see. Economic crisis. The first and the foremost is the economic crisis. Now collective agricultural farming. Now during the socialist regime, or when the Soviet Union was following, or they were in the ideology of the communists, they were following a collective agricultural farming. Now no individual will own their own farms, but it will be collectively done by the state, and then they will be directed what to produce and what to sow or whatever. But all this collective agricultural farming, it becomes the private farms, because they started shifting towards the liberal capitalist system. So individuals were given the farmland to produce whatever they want, whatever kind of crops they want, or whatever kind of productions they want to. So all of a sudden they started giving into the hands of the individuals, which the individuals they were not able to cultivate the farms because they were economically lagging behind. The second one was the value of these farms and industries. The private sectors, the state industries were given into the hand of the private sectors. All the industries were sold to the private people, and then they started. None of the individuals were so much strong enough or rich enough to run the industries. So all of a sudden, the industries were sold out to the individual instead of being controlled by the state. So this was also one of the reason why there was economic crisis, because none of the individual was rich enough to run any industries, big industries, to uh, give employment to the people or to produce the goods which the people needs. So there was a huge catastrophe in these two ideas, like bringing collective agricultural farming to private farm and state industry to the private sectors. And this was known as the largest garage sale. Industries become so cheap, and then people started buying industries with a cheap amount. So this was known as the largest garage sale in the history of mankind, where industries were sold out with just a cheap prices in Russia. The second one is the high rate of inflation and condition of the bankruptcy. Now, enough goods were not produced for the people, and then there was no employment for the people. Now, people cannot buy things because they were very poor, so there was no sale of things, and because of that, there, like I've told you, incapabilities for the operation of proper industries, production of goods, it started to fail to meet the needs of the people, leading to the inflation. And the value of ruble, that is the name of the currency of the Russia, the value of this Russian currency, it really become devalued, depreciated. The value of the ruble becomes so cheap because there was no sale, there was no purchase, nothing, no economic flow in the country. And then the government, they could not even give the salary of the professionals like the doctors, and then the government employees could not be paid. And because of this, they were slowly going into the bankruptcy. Bankruptcy means owing a huge amount of debt towards someone. So during this period of time, Russia was having a debt of $160 billion to the foreign countries, foreign investors or different foreign countries. They are taking loan in order to help the citizens out because they could not produce their own, and because of this, their debt started increasing to $160 billion. So that was a huge. Okay, the second or the another topic on another point about this shock therapy, the causes or the consequences of this, the effect and the consequences of this shock therapy was the collapse of the social welfare. Now, social welfare here we are talking about in Russia, there existed that the state, when it was everything was okay, the state used to provide help to the old age people. When the people were sick, they were given a free medical facilities, and then state aid was given in times of all those things, illness, and then old age. When people started becoming old, they will give a pension or something like that. When people are sick, the state will look after that person, and then for the medical expenses, all those things were in existence before the disintegration of the Soviet Union. However, with the disintegration of the Soviet Union, this traditional system of state aids, it all stopped. The free medical facilities, it almost got paralyzed. People were not getting any help from the state, even in the old age or even those who are sick, and even their medical facilities were cut down. So there was a collapse of the social welfare. So people, there was so much uproar, there was so much unrest because of this shock therapy, which causes everything to tumble upside down. economic inequalities. Okay, privatization of agricultural industry led to new economic order that turned Russia into the haves and the have-nots. Now, when the agriculture was sold, collective farming was done away, and then the private farm was introduced. State-owned industries were sold to the individuals, or it was privatized. Now those rich people who were rich, they started having so much of money, they become richer, and then those who don't have money, they were slowly becoming a pauper or like a beggar. So the state was divided. The state of Russia was divided into two sections of the people: those who have, those who are rich, and those who are not rich, those who are very poor. So economic inequality started cropping up, and then turning the Russians into the haves and the have-nots. Political crisis. Now, these countries who were newly independent, who declared their independence newly, in these countries, the newly independent countries, their constitution was newly formed. So, especially in this Central Asia and even in Russia itself, these leaders who were elected, or who were the leader as or the president of these countries, they become so powerful because the people, they were not strong enough to retaliate whatever they do. So the constitution of this newly independent nation of the Central Asia and Russia itself, the leaders become so more powerful than the democratically constituted parliament, leading to unstable political scenario. Now, the best example here is in the president in Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan. They got themselves elected for 10 years and then again increased their own tenure by another 10 years. Now, what kind of president can elect themselves and for 10 years and then again by their own wish again they will extend their own tenure of presidency for another 10 years? I mean, that clearly shows the picture how the political scenario was in these countries. So shock therapy, because of this shock therapy, all these consequences was faced by the people, or this effect were happening on the people and the country itself. Okay, that's all for today. I hope you have got some ideas. I will see you in the next class.